Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance, weekly scrap number 18. Very excited about this one. I got to sit down and talk with a very close friend of mine, major in my department, my driver when I was a company officer. So very near. He tells his story of what he went through and how he recovered from it. So enjoy this Firehouse Vigilance weekly scrap number 18. So, long story short, for those that don't know, this is Kyle Olsen, works at my department. Very near and dear friend of mine. He contacted me, a month ago, said you would like to tell your story. And it should be interesting and helpful for those. Yeah, so I don't really. I'll start by just telling everybody what I know of your story, and then I'm going to let you run with it. How does that sound?
Sounds awesome.
Okay. So Kyle is, when I was a company officer about 5 years ago, give or take, I was a new company officer. Kyle was a driver that came over to be my driver. And I've always taken pride and considered myself connected to my men, the guys on my crew. I've always taken pride in that, and I've always felt like I was a company officer that was connected, knew what was going on in their lives, could talk to them about their family, their problems, their issues. And so I still remember the day I got the phone call, and I got a phone call out of the blue on our day off, and that was my driver, Kyle, who I thought I knew and from all intents and purposes had the perfect life. 2 beautiful boys, beautiful wife, everything. And I got a phone call that you were in a field with a shotgun on a very, very, very dark day. And that, the rest of that day, getting to you, finding you, helping you, getting you to help, I should say. And it hit me. So that is my side of the story. Everything I knew at the time was how well, even though I thought I was connected, how much can be going on behind the scenes inside people and what they're going through that you have no clue of. And so anyway, that's kind of the how my side of the story went leading into that day. And then I'm going to let you talk now because this is your story way more than mine.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that day will forever stay with me. You know, when you and I discussed coming on here, and I thought about it, and, you know, kind of throwing all your shit out there for everyone to see and hear is kind of intimidating a little bit. And but I thought to myself, I talked to my wife, and I thought, you know what, if it helps just one person, me sharing my story and how low I was to where I am now, and it helps them, then it's absolutely worth it. There's no questions. So what I'd like to do is, you know, what you said, Chief, with me being in that field with that shotgun, that was the worst day of my life. But what I'd like to do is give you a little, you know, a quick rundown of my life and to why it got that way. You know, my parents were married. They married very young. They had me when they were very young. They divorced. You know, I was doing the whole 50-50 deal. Lived with my mom. You know, she worked 2 jobs, doing everything she could to put food on the table for us. You know, we live in an apartment. My dad remarried, got remarried, and they were starting a new family, and they were fixing to have a baby, and the wife that he was married to didn't want to have anything to do with me. So basically, my dad vanished for, you know, a while. You know, no holidays, no birthdays, no nothing. So it was just me and my mom. So I had a sense of abandonment, or if you say that. During that time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. Um, you know, and I'm sitting here, you know, at the age of, you know, 10 or so, and thinking that, you know, I've lost my dad and now I'm fixing to lose my my mom. And, you know, the anxiety that I was feeling at that time at such a young age, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was called. I just knew that I felt different. And, you know, it was a very trying time for me. But my coping mechanism back then was I was very involved in sports and basketball. And so, you know, it was every day get off the school bus and go get the kids from the apartment. And, you know, we'd play basketball till dark. You know, like I said, my mom was working 2 jobs during this time, and you know, she was gone a lot. So it was a lot of me raising myself and having to grow up at a very young age by myself. You know, I took pride in that I was the man of the house, and that's how I carried myself. Um, Fast forward a little bit, my dad divorced. He realized what he did. And he knew that it was a toxic relationship. And so now he comes back into my life, and you know, he goes through a series of major events that cause him to go on a downward spiral after that. I didn't say before, but my dad is also a firefighter, as well as my grandfather. But he lost a really dear friend of his on the highway on a car wreck. Car swerved off, hit him off the road, and he passed away. And
The line of duty deaths?
it was a line of duty death.
Okay.
And so he's dealing with that. You know, he had a brother that committed suicide during this time. He lost his father. Just a lot of negative events were in his life. And you know, I think what a lot of Americans do, a lot of firemen do to cope is, you know, they start turning to alcohol. And, you know, he started drinking, and, you know, it spiraled out of control. And at that time, you know, I'm at the junior high school age. You know, I'm trying to deal with all these stresses of life. Basically, the roles were reversed. I was the father, and he was the son, and I carried that with me. But every day I would go to school, and I would put a smile on my face. I'd still play sports, and I would move on. So I got really good, I guess, at being a chameleon. You know,
Just masking.
masking. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like what you said in the leading up story is you had no idea. You had no idea that I was struggling with everything that I was struggling with. You know, my anxiety right then really ramps up. And I'm doing the best that I can to cope with it. By then, you know, I turned 21, and I get introduced to alcohol. And I'll never forget seeing my father go through what he went through, and where it took him to me saying I would never touch that stuff. I remember taking the first drink, and it was a huge sigh of relief. It was like the weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I could breathe. I felt normal. There were no stresses or anxieties in my life.
Same
So,
when you drank?
right.
When you started drinking? Okay.
Yeah. So I hired on the job. It's always been a dream of mine to be a fireman, you know, to carry on the family tradition. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Get on the job, and I'm doing good. My dad's kind of up and down, up and down. I get married, and let me back up a little bit. During all this time in sixth grade, that's when I met Tori, my wife, and we started dating. Junior high, high school, and so she knew everything that was going on, and even back then, she was very supportive and tried to understand everything that was going on. Um, as a young adult, child, whatever, having to deal with that, carried a burden with me, and I didn't know how to react. So fast forward, get on the job, life's good. Tori and I get married. We start having kids. Um, you know, out of my rookie brothers, I would always ask them, have you ran on any kids? And, they would say no or whatever. And I guess you could say I had my bad luck with kids, running on kids. And when we would run on kids, it was sad for me, but it really didn't affect me how it did until I started having my own.
Right.
And that's when it really hit hard. And, I ran a lot of kid calls, but I think when it really started compounding was May 20th. And, Chief, you were there. And for those of you not from Oklahoma, we had a big tornado to come through our metro area and do a lot of damage. And, I was at Plaza Towers, and it was the first time that I could not shake it. I could not shake what I was feeling. Pulling the kids out and looking over and seeing the parents and the emotions that they were going through and the hope and everything, all that they were going through was, it was a hard pill to swallow. And but I looked at all the guys that were there, and they seemed to be doing fine, so I should be doing fine. So I trucked on, and I kept moving forward. Promote to lieutenant. My first shift as being a lieutenant, we make a commercial structure fire department. We get there, and my captain is going crazy at the top of the staircase, and he's yelling for me to get up there. And I get up there, and there's two twins, probably 9 months old, laying there. And they went in to fight the fire, and me and this other fireman, we sat there and, we started working them. And it's the first time in my career that, I've ever had to do mouth to mouth. It's always BBM or, they're intubated or whatever. But
Sure.
and then a series of other calls, probably a 6-week span that it was like we were making a child death every week, every tour. And I remember looking at the captain and we were getting back, and I was like, I can't take one more kid. I can't do it. And during this time, Tori loses a baby. And I go to my dad is really bad off, and I go to a very dark fucking place. And I hate saying this now, but I want to be real with everyone. I didn't believe. I didn't want to believe in God. There wasn't a God, in my opinion. And if there was a God, I didn't want to have anything to do with him. That's just kind of my mindset then. And, finally, my dad, get some help. And then it's like there's no one else's shit to focus on except for my own. And that's when I really started spiraling. And, I was fine at work. Like you said, I'd come to work hard and push on. And I had a side business at the time. I get off work, go do my side business. And then 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd come home and start drinking beer. And that was my routine for a long time. And that's how I coped with it. Um, I, I didn't want to face my demons. I was constantly running from them and, trying to hide. And, that's what leads me up to, I remember Tori, I guess the only person that could see the signs were Tori. And, she, I was sleeping a lot. There was a lot of isolation. Obviously, drinking every night. But the only times that I would feel normal is when I was drinking or at work. And so that's the only time, that's where I wanted to be, was at work or drinking.
Right.
And this went on for, a good while, until like 3 months. I used to have the mentality that people we'd run on people that were depressed, and I'd be like, what are you depressed about? You have a roof over your head, you have food on the table, electricity. There's nothing to be depressed about.
Sure.
And then until it hit me, and like I said, man, it was a dark, dark place I was in, and I just hit my limit, and I hate saying this, but I thought the only way to get through this was to end it. And, it gives me chills to this day to think about that, because, I'm sitting here and I have a beautiful wife, beautiful boys that I love with all my heart, but deep down inside, I was struggling. I was, I was losing my mind. And so, that's the day that, you got the phone call. And I didn't know what else to do. To me, it was a cry out for help, because I felt like I had dealt with things, but I really didn't. And so that led me into the phone call. So, I go and get the help that I need. I go to Jackson, Mississippi for 3 months. And that was a difficult time for my family, because my boys didn't understand. It was by far, besides the depression, the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. I'd rather run 24 marathons than have to go do that all over again. But I came home, and like you and I have talked before, is the 3 months in Jackson was. I wouldn't say that it helped me. I quit drinking. I didn't consider myself an alcoholic, but I used alcohol as my coping mechanism to suppress the feelings that I was feeling. So I came home, I was sober, but I was still struggling. But it wasn't until the point where I met with the counselor and we started digging deep. And, we faced those demons head on. And that's when the healing process began for me. So, it was it's been a long road. I mean, it's been almost 5 years.
Right.
But I say this in that anyone out there struggling, that, if you see the signs, it's not a sign of weakness. You got to take care of yourself. You know, I see way too many guys going down bad roads, and it doesn't get good. You know, you have to face those demons head on.
So, man, like I said at the beginning, man, just not having any clue what was going on inside your brain. You were so good at masking,
Mm-hmm.
and I, it. What would you? How do you? What is your advice to someone who is going through, who's struggling, who is in the job, who is good at masking, who probably takes pride in the ability to go to work and put on that face and do the job
Mm-hmm.
and fooling everybody around him? What is your advice to that person?
You know, reach out. If you would have told me 5 years ago that talking to someone was actually going to help me, I'd say you're full of shit. I don't want any part of that.
Right.
But you know, like I've said to you in our conversations at work, is I don't know what it does, but it helps. Um, the I guess the reason why I told my beginning story, um, I don't want to. I don't feel sorry for myself, um, and that's not why I told the story. It's everyone has a story. We all go through hard times in life and struggles. We deal with our weaknesses and our strengths. Some people are better at it than others. Um, but I think what I was missing was the foundation. I was missing from my early childhood, I was missing the foundation on how to deal with stuff and how to process things. So now, you know, my biggest asset to me is my wife. Um, I used to never talk about anything. I used to come home, not voice anything to her. Any struggles that I was having with calls to it be whatever it may be, but uh, personality issues at work or whatever it is. But now I'm an open book and I bounce things off of her. I mean, without her, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Um, and you know, I surround myself with great guys. I cut out the negative bullshit. We see negative bullshit on the job, and you know, I do things that are positive. You know, I exercise, I eat right, I try to sleep as much. You know, get the 8 hours in. You know, do all these positive things in life. Um, because, like you know, Chief, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, and you know that's my new mission in life. You know, my new birthday is September 4th. September 3rd is the day that you got the phone call, and you know that was the worst day of my life. September 4th is my new birthday, and you know it's my rebirth. It's me growing as a human, me growing as a man. Um, but I wanted to share this story so others could know that if you do come to a life ambush, whatever it may be, lost of a loved one or whatever, there are resources out there that you can use to get help, that you can use to not take the negative turn like I did, and use alcohol or drugs to mask those feelings. The way I look at it is, you know, our society wants always to take the easy way out. And the easy way out to me is to drink and suppress those. The hard thing to do is face them and confront them, you know. So I don't run anymore. I hit them head on. But I want to give the listeners out there, whoever it may be, that from the darkest moment in my life to where I am today is night and day difference. And
Oh, there's no doubt.
I don't think that there is, I don't think that there, there's any way to describe it better than that is I never thought that I could got out of that rut. And I was in the toilet bowl and I was just spinning and spinning and spinning. So,
and then for everybody, the rest of Kyle's story is an unbelievable recovery and shining example of recovery from that deep dark hole that he was in.
mm-hmm.
And it is, it's inspiring if you know the man. I'm proud to have him as a major on my shift, and he's a shining example to his men, and he invests in those men. You mentioned that it was hard on your boys when you went away. How has that affected your relationship? How open are you with them about what all you went through?
So my oldest is 8, and my middle is 7, and then we have a 2-year-old. And from time to time, I'll ask them, do you ever? Because when I was drinking, I wasn't angry, I wasn't violent. I just kept. I kept to myself.
You were fun. You were a good guy, man.
Yeah.
Around the station, away from the station.
Right. I kept to myself and I did my thing. But I asked them, just probably it's been about a month ago, because they know I don't drink alcohol anymore,
right.
And where all of our friends drink alcohol and we're around them all the time. And he asked me, he said, Dad, how come you don't drink beer? And I said, do you ever remember me drinking beer? And he said, no. And I said, well, it's just a choice I'm deciding not to make. I don't want to go down that. And I think as they get older, I will explain to them.
Sure.
And I'm not ashamed. I used to be like, when I first got back, I was very ashamed of everything that I went through. I felt very weak. Like I couldn't handle my shit. And I was ashamed of it. But where I am today is I wear my scars with fucking honor. And I'm proud of everything that I've been through in life because it's made me who I am today. And I'm very proud of that. I pride myself in being a great father and a great husband and a great firefighter. I had the attitude of every day is a new day. And I'm not going to sit up here and bullshit and say, every day is lollipops and gumdrops because it's not,
right.
But I believe in trying to do the best that you can every day because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So I want to leave it.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I want to leave an impact on, if tomorrow is my last day, I want to leave an impact on my kids, on the guys I work with, and anyone that is in contact with me. Because I know this. I know you enjoy holding me accountable. Yes. You're not scared to do it. So yes,
I appreciate that. Sometimes I don't appreciate it, but I do appreciate it.
Right. We're going to grind it out.
Well, brother, I can say this. I did not know what to expect having you come on and share your story. I knew you wanted to share it, and if it helps, like you said, if it helps one guy in West Virginia who sees it one day and saves him from going down your road, it is worth its share.
Absolutely.
And the best part of your story isn't the dark. I mean, obviously, it's not the dark place you were at. It's how far you've come since then, and the help you found, and your recovery, and your strength, and the example that you can be for other people. And of course, your wife and kids, and everything like that, and how into the job you are now, and everything, man. So I cannot thank you enough for coming on the scrap, sharing something so personal, just in the off chance it would help somebody who sees it.
Absolutely.
And so for that, I say thank you, man. I really don't have much to add because you're one of my best friends in life, and I love you and appreciate you as a major, and thank you for coming on and sharing that. So I got not much else to say except thank you.
I appreciate it.
As always, to the viewers out there, if you know, reach out to those people on your shift because I can't stress this enough. Is this cat right here had everybody fooled that his life was perfect. So reach out and just ask, how are you doing? Because it is I'm lucky enough not to regret that he didn't get help and didn't recover. I'm lucky in that regard. So other than that, just reach out to your brothers and sisters in the fire service, brothers and sisters in your family. And thank you, Kyle, for coming on.
Absolutely,
So,
man. I appreciate it.
everybody out there, I hope the tones stay silent, unless, of course, it's burning. Stay safe out there. Thank you, guys.